Hi, I'm Samantha Murray,
Hi, I'm Courtney Sembler.
and this is CX Signals.
In this episode of CX Signals, we are joined by Christina Garnett. Christina shares her journey from a multi-passionate professional to a fractional consultant and author. She discusses the importance of transforming customer relationships through emotional connections, the role of social listening, and the challenges of rebranding. Christina emphasizes the need for genuine community building over mere audience engagement and highlights the significant qualitative data in understanding customer sentiments. The discussion also touches on the impact of AI on marketing and the necessity of maintaining human connections in an increasingly digital world. Stay tuned and join us with Christina for this engaging conversation. All right, we're going to jump right in. Christina, welcome to CX Signals. It's so good to have you here. We've known each other for a while from our HubSpot days, but it's fun to have a conversation now, not with the HubSpot orange and white backgrounds behind us.
True, very true. It's so lovely to chat. So thanks for having me.
Well, I'd love for you to start off, give our listeners a little bit about your background. Who are you? Where'd you come from? And how did you end up in the space that you're now in?
Absolutely. So I'm a bit of a multi-passionate, which makes a lot of sense if you look back at all the things I've done. I was an English major. I was a math teacher. I did work at an art museum. I've done a little bit of everything: marketing director, advocacy, community, social media strategy, the whole nine. And so when I left HubSpot, I tried to figure out what did I want to be when I actually grew up. And it was actually what does a world look like where I put all of those things together so I can actually drive impact. And so I wound up writing a job description for myself. What is this person? What do I want to be? What do I want to be responsible for? What impact do I want to create? And then it was a chief customer officer when I was at HubSpot. And I'm sure you had a very similar situation where I had a lot of people who tried to poach me. We'd love to work with you, but we don't have the head count, or we'd love to work with you, but I'm sure we can't afford you. And so when I left, it was very much how can I tailor all the stuff that I love into a package that makes sense, and then give it to the people who would do anything to work with me, but would never be able to afford me or never be able to have a full head count. And so I did a lot of research on fractional work, and it kind of felt like the perfect kind of alignment of all of these moving pieces. And so there's a lot of people who want to work with me fractionally, a lot of people who just want to pick my brain so I could work as a consultant for them. And so it wound up being really lovely, and it's been amazing. I have amazing clients. We've done some really, really cool things over the past couple of years, and I'm excited to chat and learn more about what you're doing too.
Yeah, no, the world of fractional, I'm stepping into it myself. It's a little different.
Yes.
And it always sounds like such a compliment. It's we won't be able to afford you. I'm like, could you figure out a way?
Try. Give me a number.
Could you try? I'm like, wait. I haven't said a number yet. Why don't we?
Yeah.
I love the compliment, but at the same time, I'm like, I'd love to work with you as well. So let's see if we can figure that out.
Exactly.
But it's been great to see all the things that you're doing. And you just came out with a book recently. Tell us a little bit about what sort of drew you to, transforming customer brand relationships. That's the premise of your book. You dive into a lot of it. A lot of that emotional side of the customer relationship. What brought you to that? What was the premise of I'm going to write the book? Tell us a little bit more about that story.
Yeah. So I've always wanted to be a writer, and I've done quite a bit of writing, but more on either nonfiction, short stories, or I've had a couple bylines, basically being chronically opinionated on the internet is probably the best way to describe me. And so I had a dear friend who wrote a book for Kogan Page, Jenny Lee Fowler, who's the director of social media, social strategy at MIT. She's absolutely brilliant. If you don't follow her already, please do so. She's one of a kind. And she was working with Kogan Page, asked me to do a couple quotes for the book. I did. And then obviously hyped her up because she's brilliant, but also she's my girl. And so Kogan Page saw that and then basically did their view of me and was like, maybe this could be someone else. So they reached out and was like, hey, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, absolutely not business though. It's what if Flannery O'Connor and Stephen King had a child and she was born in North Carolina, Southern Baptist? That was the book I was going to write, not this. So we talked about it, and I was like, well, I've done a lot about building loyalty and building brand affinity, and what does that look like? And a lot of my learnings from all of the paths I've taken is it really is never just your work. It really is, even if you're a team of one, if you are in an org at all, your work is dependent on other people. And you're impacting other people's work, other people are impacting your work. And so it really was, it went from how do we create love to how do I make it so that people can actually create a system so they can create that love in the first place? Because it isn't just success and it isn't just the social team. And so it gave me an opportunity to really kind of look from the outside in to like, how do you actually build that? And so um it really is like how do we build this? What are all the moving pieces? Because when I wanted to do more about like the CCO route, I read everything I could get my hands on. And you needed a library. And I was like, what if I had like the one book? I just
Bringing
want
it all
the
together.
one book that brings it all together. So I can have a little bit of game theory and behavioral psychology, but I can also talk about social media and community and AI and PR crises and stuff like that. And so the book was very much like, what if I gave you the TLDR for all of this? And so that's the book.
That's awesome. And I love going through it myself, the like felt, not just measured, that like rallying cry we sort of have throughout the book. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. I mean, from the customer ed side, I know that was a lot of, my big premise that we talk a lot about is like you have to bring the things together, the
Yep.
marketing, the community. You can't just put customer education off in a little silo, which like a lot of companies do. And then it's time for layoffs and they're like, we don't need customer education.
Yep.
Big surprise, you do, and you're
Yeah.
gonna miss out on a lot when that team isn't there. But without I love to think about it more as like those Venn diagrams. Like, where do we
Yes.
have this shading between these different organizations? And you've talked a lot about like the social listening as a strategy. And my goodness, you go on LinkedIn, every company is like, we listen to our customers. And I'm like, but but do you like
No, no. The more you say you listen, the more I don't think you do, actually. I think it's a
it's
misnomer.
it's like the thing in a relationship where you're like, I'm working really hard at this. And you're like, but
Are you?
are you? Like, what if you stopped saying that and actually like did the work?
Yeah.
So help us unpack that. How do you turn listening into that strategic capability that gives us what the customers really care about enough for them to like advocate for you and your organization?
Yeah. Well, if you look at like past branding and marketing strategies, specifically around like focus groups and customer, like brands will pay millions of dollars for a deck that tells them what they need to believe and what they need to do, but then they won't take the time to listen to that for free. And
Hmm.
it's always wild to me. Like I love social listening tools. I've used most of them. Like they're great. And depending on your budget, like I can point you in the right direction. But like any platform that has a little search bar, go nuts. Go nuts for free. Like see where you're tagged. More importantly, see where you're not tagged. See who's talking about your vertical, like all this stuff. And like we're seeing this on Reddit too, now that like people realize that AI is scraping Reddit, so they need to go there for SEO. If you were like anyone who's in the social listening world could have told you that because they've been using Reddit like that forever. It's a gold mine for social listening data. And so
Right.
if you've always wanted like a focus group for free, or I'd love to be able to like listen to our customers at scale, that is actually social listening. The problem is that you have to be okay with the fact that you're going to hear and see things that you don't want to see. You're going to hear people absolutely hate you. You're going to hear people dog your brand and tell people they should never touch it. You're going to see horror stories. Worse, worse, you might not see anything, which means no one's even talking about you, which is in a lot of ways worse. Apathetic. You're
Yeah.
not even on the radar. And so I feel like a lot of brands, they know that they need to, but there isn't it like, why should I invest in something that's going to hurt my own feelings?
Right.
But you have to get past that. You have to understand that this is how you're going to learn, this is how you're going to grow, and this is how you're going to make the impact that you actually want to make. Because a lot of brands, they are listening, but they're only listening when things go badly. Like you're using customer support is like looking at all the mentions. They're seeing when there needs to be an escalation. They're seeing all these things. The problem with me for brands is that I see very few brands have an escalation procedure for the good.
Mm.
So when someone's hating on you, you're going to flag it to everybody. The CEO might even respond in the comments to like calm things down. But if someone loves your brand, a lot of brands don't even like it, let alone respond. And what you have to think, and like so much of the book and like the behavioral science of it all is that what you do as a brand is conditioning your customers and your audience to perform a certain way and to act a certain way. So if you only respond to them when they're angry at you and you never respond when they say something kind, you're letting them know that the only way to get your attention is to be mad, is to be mean, is to be cruel. And that is not what you want to do. So every time someone says, I love you, and you don't do anything in response, you're basically giving them a reason to never do that again. No one, even if
Right.
it's for a brand or like a boy or a girl they love, like no one wants to be humiliated on main, but that is
No.
exactly what's doing. That's what you're doing is you're humiliating them and being like, sorry, we can't even love you back. We can't even like your tweet back. That's really harmful. And I don't think enough brands realize that that's what you're doing. Every single touch point is customer experience. It's not just onboarding. It's not just how it went with sales. It's not just customer education and community. It's all of it. It is absolutely all of it. And when you don't have those teams aligned and they're not talking to each other, and worse, when they're kind of like set up against each other, like we can't even collaborate because I got to keep my KPI solid or else I'm going to get laid off. Now you not only have teams that aren't working together, they are all playing a zero-sum game. And not only will they each lose, but the customer will lose. And
Yeah.
that's like, if there's anything I could like beat into the people reading the book with the book itself, it's that.
Well, and I mean, that I know you've talked a lot about the behavioral psychology of that and the behavioral science. Frances Fry talks a lot about that in a lot of her work, which is like for every negative piece of feedback you give somebody, you should be giving them 5 positive
Yeah.
pieces of feedback.
That's the Gottman ratio. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that, to me, I had that sticky note on my computer for a really long time because even for myself, like, oh, I'm really hard on myself. I'm going to like tell myself all the bad things that just reinforces that in my brain. First, like, hey, you know what? Like you woke up this morning and like you posted on LinkedIn. High five. Like
Yep.
that was a good thing. Let's reevaluate that and reinforce that.
Yeah.
I feel like I see it a lot with brands that go through big rebrands.
Yes.
They're like, we're going to switch out everything and it's going to change the way our customers look at us. And it costs millions of dollars. Have you seen that strategy be successful for anyone? Like, am I just jaded? The Jaguar example from a couple
Yeah.
years ago always stands out to me, but what do you see in that of like the rebrands or when customers try to engage with a brand as they're going through those transitions? Does that actually end up ever getting the ROI the companies want?
No. The short answer is no. Long answer is I think it was like after the Cracker Barrel thing, I actually tweeted about like, I'm no longer going to deconstruct these rebrands because they're doing it on purpose. I think it comes down to intention. And if you're really strategic about your brand and what you want to be and like all this money that you could spend it on, the rebrand is never where you would land, but it's where you land anyway. And it's usually for a couple reasons. It's an earned media Hail Mary. You know that you're going to get earned media for it. So if like it's been a press desert for you, your PR team keeps pitching and no one wants anything from you, no one cares. Usually a rebrand is going to get people talking about it. And then in addition to that, if it's done poorly, you're going to get even more. And if we look at like 2025 as a nutshell, it really is the year of Machiavellian marketing for me. I have so many thoughts on it where that's what you're doing is you're doing a Hail Mary pass for attention and you don't even care if it's good attention. You just want the attention. And so we've talked a lot about like, and there's like, you could throw a rock at a press release that talks about like the attention economy. We're seeing we're seeing the like the payoffs of this attention economy where it's attention at all costs. It is Machiavellian in nature. And so I'm going to do a rebrand. And if you love it or hate it, it doesn't matter because you're talking about us. And that was the intention all along. And so if the intention is we're going to do this rebrand and people are going to talk about us versus we're going to do this rebrand and it's going to like get us into like our next audience phase or it's going to help us like resurge. I don't think it's an accident that, like you mentioned, Jaguar, they completely threw away their heritage. Meanwhile, like the whole time they were doing all this stuff and I was like, all I want is a vintage British racing green
Right.
flag. Give me a vintage green one. I'll post about it for the rest of my life, like for free. I don't care. But it's like
Yeah.
you threw away your heritage. And then you look at Burberry, who I think figured out that lesson around the same time that Jaguar was doing this. Burberry was like, oh, absolutely not. We need to bring the checkered print back. We need to really kind of lean into our heritage. And it's worked fantastically. And so I think it really comes down to intentionality. And I think a lot of these are just Hail Mary passes. And that's why it doesn't work, is because you
Yeah.
weren't doing it for the betterment of the brand. You were doing it because you wanted something shiny. And most rebrands in the end are just something shiny.
Yeah. I mean, we see that in San Francisco. You drive down 280, 101, every other billboard. Like, okay, which company is that now? Is that the previous company? And it doesn't matter
Mhm.
because all of a sudden now I'm Googling it or like asking Claude,
Yeah.
and that feeds into it because
Yeah.
I'm curious, why on earth would you do that? That reframe of like that was their intention all along.
Yeah.
Which, I live in Salesforce country, so it's a little, if it's not blue and white, like probably people aren't paying attention anyways. But I will say a couple of like the billboard advertising does crack me up when they start the wars with each other and they're like pointing each other back and forth. It is great. I do my drive to Tahoe. It is entertaining. Now, whether it ever converts me into a customer, probably zero chance in that.
Just like out of home wars whenever you're driving.
Oh gosh. It's, there's a lot of ways to be entertained in the car still. Well, with those brands and some of that, I know the other big area you talk a lot about is like the community and how we actually have emotional connection. Something that I hear a lot being maybe discussed and not clear on, of like the difference between your audience and your community, and how do you intentionally design those spaces where people are going to have the emotional connection. What does that look like for you? How have you sort of seen that play out in your work?
So before I answer that, I have to like go back a couple steps, because the
Okay.
reason that problem exists is because we've commodified community. We have squeezed
Yeah.
like commodity is what authenticity was like a couple years ago. Like we have absolutely like put all the frills, all the bows, we put it on a parade, we've done all the things. And so a lot of what is described as community is absolutely not community. It's an audience that you like locked in a dungeon somewhere. And you're like, see, look at my community. And I'm like, really not.
I feel like I think I'm locked in some of those dungeons. I feel like I was just
Just get
freed
me out.
from my online communities.
But I find that and it goes back to intentionality again, but it also goes back to like, it isn't like you build a Slack channel or you put something on Gainsight or you put something somewhere else. Like it's not these things. It's what I need people to know is like the community is not the room. The community is what is in the room. And then until you look at it from that lens, you're thinking about it in a pretty manipulative way. And even if your intentions are good, you're probably thinking about it in a manipulative way, because your whole thing is based off of like a CTA flow. I need them to do this. Cool. What's next? And then so what you're doing is, unless you're building with them, then what you're really doing is you're essentially like it's the new funnel. Is the audience to community is the new, like, how do I get them deeper in the funnel? But we can't say that because that makes it sound transactional. But that's what most people are doing anyway. It's like, I need to get them from audience to community. And then once they're in the community, I can either monetize it, or I can have them do this, or I can have them do that. And so I would welcome anyone who is either like the community's not working out and they need to figure out what's going on, or they want to like kind of reframe from like audience to community. Is you need to be building with, not for. So like, how often are you talking to the people that you want to, like, you're essentially your ICP for community? How often are you talking to them about what their needs are? Like, how are those needs being met? What does that look like? Because very few times do I see people do that. They just like, they don't want to take the time, or it's too much, or they need to like rush this for Q3 or whatever that looks like.
They don't want the negative feedback. They don't want to
Yeah,
hear that it's not working.
yeah. And so you need to build with them, and they need to be a partnership in this building, because if you just have like a committee that's building a community and like making it work, but you don't take any feedback, or you don't have like actual participation, and not from like they went to an event or they did a survey, but like they actually are engaged in doing things. And I would argue you don't really have a community. You have almost like the recipe of a community, but like you didn't bake it right. Like it's just like
Yeah.
something's off. And I think you can feel that way. The things that I really love, and I think AI is a huge opportunity for community, because people need the real. I think the more AI is permeated into our world, we're going to see more people wanting to do in person. We're going to see more things of like, I want to be in the room with people. I want to connect. I want to have these conversations. I want to know that I'm talking to someone who's real, because they're right there. They're tangible. They're physical. And so I think that's a huge opportunity for communities. So like, if you have an online community for next year, you should be planning for, how do we do this in the physical? how do we do this in small and large ways? How can we have like these intimate macro and micro opportunities so that we can really kind of foster this energy? The way that I like to think about community is as the third place. And
Hmm.
I think the reason why we've seen community blow up so much is because, especially in the United States, we've destroyed the third place. Like it's a parking lot now. Like we've purposely like it's been commodified, it's been destroyed, or it used to be a concert and now those concert tickets are $1,000 when they were like $25 10 years ago. Whatever it is, what we've done is we've destroyed the third place. And so as humans, we still need it. Like we still psychologically and emotionally need a third place. And so if you're building a community, your goal should be the third place for those people so that if they're not home, if they're not at school, if they're not at work, this is their place. This is where they feel safe. This is where their people are. This is where they can hang out. This is where they can be themselves. Like that's it. And I find that very few communities, like I tend to be like very nomadic around communities. I always want to try it out. I get invited to them all the time. And very, very few have ever felt like a third place to me. And that is the litmus test. Like, does this feel like this could be a third place for me? And if it isn't, then it's like, I'm going to come in every now and then whenever you like ping me. But other than that, like I'm not going to be sticky. It's probably the best way to describe it. Like I can't be sticky if it's not a third place for me.
Yeah. Are there any communities you've either worked with that have felt like that, whether you were a part of it or not, or ones that you're a part of where you're like, oh yeah, like I'm here and this feels like that connection element for me?
I was lucky enough to go to Boston a couple weeks ago for Customer XCon, and conferences are very weird to me because I'm not, and you've met me in person, so you know that I'm
Yeah.
not like this in person. In person, I'm a lot more introverted. I'm a lot more quiet. Like online Christina is what you get after knowing me for 5 years. Like that's the circle of trust. In person, I'm significantly more quiet and like
Yeah.
tiny. Like I'm just like I'm not gregarious. I'm just not. So when I got to go to Customer XCon, when I go to conferences, they tend to be hit or miss. Either I get a lot of people who know me from online, but they've never met me in person and like the vibes aren't right. Or you'll get people who are like, "Hey, we should take a selfie." And I'm like, if you just want to say hi to me for a selfie, that's weird because like I'm a nobody. What are we doing here? Like it's very weird. Or there's like mean girl lunch table energy,
Yeah.
or it's like nice and it actually feels like third place. And so at Customer XCon, when I got to go, it felt like a third place. There's a lot of people
Hmm.
like we've all kind of known each other. So it's a lot of like customer marketers, community people. And so it was really lovely to see people who should be a third place for each other act like a third place for each other. That was very nice for me. So I got to give a shout out to the Customer XCon and everyone there, like just Dave, Allison, like you know who you are, just lovely. But that's what it felt like. It felt like I was like, oh, I'm not missing my family right now. Like I can work, I can have some fun, I can hang out with my people. But that's the goal. But I've definitely had the other experiences too, where it's just like I graduated high school like a really long time ago.
Long
I'm
time
not gonna
ago.
I'm not gonna play this game. This is weird. Yeah.
And it feels, I mean, particularly now, we've come out of the pandemic, thank goodness.
Thank God.
You're like, every once in a while, I think about that time and I'm like, I don't know how we all survived. And we're spending more and more time talking to AI, talking with AI. We're sort of
Yeah.
coming into a really new space. And so when you go out in the world, whether it's a networking event, whether it's a conference, like, I don't want that. I
Yeah.
don't want the like mean comments to my face. Like, I want to be with people who are interesting, who are going to build you up, who are going to
Yeah.
ask good questions, and also just talk. I was
Yeah.
at DevLearn in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, and it was amazing to me. Go up to these vendors, they have a booth, they've like paid to be here. And I'm like, hi, I'm Courtney. Like, and they just sort of look at you and I'm like, what are what are you doing here other than
Yeah.
to talk about your product or
Yes.
to sell me your product?
You have one job if you're at the booth.
One job. Like
Yeah.
I I might not buy your product, but like I now even don't even know how to buy your product if I wanted to. But that shift I think is changing for a lot of people where they're like, oh, we just need to be seen. We don't need to curate anything.
Yeah.
Being here is enough. And I mean, I already knew that that was not enough, but I think reading your book and hearing all the things we've talked about, it's like, that's not enough. You have to be curating that. And in your now fractional roles, I'm assuming a lot of the conversations you have is building that business case with that leadership team of why emotional connection, community, storytelling is an important thing for businesses. What has that looked like as you've gone into organizations, as you coach other organizations? Like this is the pillar of your strategy. How do you
Yeah.
sell that to the executive team?
Yeah. So probably the easiest way to describe it is that they already understand that emotional connection works because they understand that rage bait and unhinged content work. So if you understand what it looks like for bad, you absolutely can understand how it works for good. The other thing too is that like I find that speaking in the language that they like to hear obviously tends to help. And so as AI is permeated, you're seeing what it's doing is it's actually like really creating this layer across the tech stack. So there's kind of this homogeny in the tech stack. So if everyone's adding AI, where are the differentiators? The differentiator is in the soft skills. The differentiator is in the emotional intelligence. The differentiator is the human connection where it's like, I'm not buying from from this brand. I'm buying from so and so at this brand. Like we've talked about how people don't buy from brands, they buy from people. It's like on steroids now because there's so much to distrust. There's so much like we all know we're trying to sell each other. We all know that like as soon as I get a connection request on LinkedIn, I'm going to get pitch slapped. Like we already know it's not if, it's like how long, like how patient are you going to be, Bob from so and so? Like I know it's coming. How fast is it going to hit me? And so we already have this like layer of distrust. So to be the brand that's willing to play the long game and know that like, yes, it's not going to go viral as quickly as you like cussing out an entire country. But what it's going to do is it's going to slowly chip away and become your brand so that when people are thinking about what can I cut from my life because we're in this economic uncertainty, I can't let go of this product because this product is so much more than that. It is the community I'm a part of. It's the C-suite that's a part of the product that actually listens to me and will take a call. It's the peer network I have in there that makes me feel less alone at work. It's like all of these moving pieces that like are actually sticky. And so when I talk to leadership, I'm like, what do you want to be known for? And then they rattle something off. And I was like, no, 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 no. That can be copied. What do you want to be known for? And they have to figure out away from like, I'm not a VC. You're not pitching me like that. Like, you need to pitch me on how you're actually different. It's not Airbnb for hugs. Like, it's not that. Like, what is it? And so I find that like once we drilled that down and then they realize like, we want to be known for this. Okay, great. So how do you breadcrumb that in every single thing that you're doing? Because if you say you're customer centric, then you never listen to your customers. Your onboarding experience is an email with links and nothing else. You have a community, but it's a link to a Slack channel. That's it. You like, what are we doing? Like you've created a checklist of what these things could be, but they're like shadows of like what the real thing could be. And then they wonder when people leave. So it's like, if you really care about like your brand and not in a rebrand way, but in a like how you actually exist. And then more importantly, you care about retention. Let me show you how retention works. Because people, they don't want the churn, but they don't want to think about, they don't want to have that tough conversation of, are we giving people a reason to stay? Great case in point, because I'm a college football girl. We've seen a lot of college football coaches leave, flee, do the things, do all the things. What's been interesting is I'm a Hokie. And so we're paying attention to Penn State because we just got Franklin and their fans are hating on us, but they're struggling to find a head coach. And a lot of the head coaches they talk to got extensions at their current school. And they're basically like, what do you need to stay?
Yeah.
What do you need to stay? So brands and like corporations and schools, they understand. They understand like, oh, you're about to walk out the door. Let's negotiate. What if you negotiated when you started seeing the signals of them being unhappy? What if you look at how like taking care of them before they start thinking about somebody else? What if we did that? What if you were paying so close enough attention to them that you're like, the vibes are off. I wonder if they're unhappy. Instead,
I wonder if
yeah, go ahead.
they're starting to like get that. I mean, it's like in a job. The
Yeah.
signals that you're
Yeah.
going to leave
Yes.
have been 12 months in the making, often more.
Yeah.
And then your manager is like, what do you mean you're leaving? What do
Yep.
you mean this other company came in?
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know if I could have been more clear other than putting like a Zoom background up that said, I don't like it here.
Yeah.
Which like, I wish I could be that blunt in some situations. It's like, I don't want to be here. Like, you know that, I know that, I don't want to be here.
This sucks in all caps in the Slack channel somewhere.
Right. But it is amazing how, and
And the same thing in like personal relationships where like
Yeah.
your friendship is dwindling and then all of a sudden you're surprised when you have a big fight. It's like, oh, you haven't checked in on me. You haven't asked me how I am.
Exactly.
You haven't asked me how my kids are in like months. That's weird. And I don't want to be your friend anymore.
Yeah, it's
What do you
exactly that.
What do you say? I love the example with the head coaches in the football. I'm an NFL girl because
Okay.
my team is the Buffaloes. I went to Colorado. I
Mhm.
love Dion, but we can't stitch together more than like
Yeah.
1 or 2 wins a season. Dion's gonna have to figure it out eventually. I could do another podcast about that. But when you're working with some of these organizations, like what are the top things that you see as those signals of like unhappy customers, dying community, kind of what would you say to them of like, these are the signals you should be paying attention to?
Silence. Silence is the loudest signal of all time because the person who was like really loud and angry and complained all the time or like always did your survey and then all of a sudden like their engagement starts dropping, that's massive. That's a huge signal. And a lot of people don't. The reason like you don't quantify for that is because you can't quantify for all of them. Like there's no like contact field for like just stop doing this. But you could do it for like they stop using the product as much or their cadence of use of product is slowing down. Or they used to always sign up to be in the cab, but now they don't do that anymore. So there are things that you can actually track, but you need someone to know that that's important. But I find that silence is the biggest because what that usually means is that we've gone to apathy. And like, be mad at me. Be mad because that means you care. That means I can like if you're angry at me, I can salvage this because you absolutely care. But if you shut down and you don't care anymore, we're good. We're done. We're done. Like we're over it. And that's the thing. Like I'm glad that you mentioned like the relationship stuff with your friend, but also like you were talking about the magic ratio earlier. Like Gottman has the magic ratio. It's like 5-to-1, good and bad. And that's in marriage counseling because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's B2B, B2C, your best friend, your husband of 20 years. It doesn't matter because it's human to human. And I find that we want to have like, what's the B2B case? And I was like, no, what is the human to human case? Because it's still a human who's on the side making those decisions. But we act like they're not. And then the other thing would be, and this takes care too, it's paying attention to the variables that have nothing to do with you that will absolutely impact. So if you are a brand, so like one of the things I do is for my clients, and then because I work in an agency and they're one of my clients, I specifically set up Google Alerts for all of my clients, but I set up Google Alerts for my clients' clients. So anything that's happening to them, good, bad, ugly, I already know. I already have like an understanding of like, this is the stuff that they're dealing with. And it's going to impact our work with them, whether it's directly or indirectly. Maybe it shifts budget, maybe it shifts direction, like whatever it is. But actually taking the time to know and to care and to know that that's important and those variables can impact you is absolutely critical. Like you need to have those signals, but you need to care in order to understand those signals are important. And I think that's where like the soft skills, emotional intelligence is huge. Because you can have someone like build an entire revenue dashboard for you in a CRM. But if you don't know like the extracurricular stuff that matters, that's going to hurt. And you know what? You don't need to know, but you know who does? Probably social media team, probably your customer success team. That's the thing too, is like when I've been in like customer success meetings and we keep trying to flag the problems and no one wants to listen, or I've been on social and we want to work with and collaborate with other teams, but they just tell us like, no, we'll tell you when to post this. And like, that's the whole relationship. Yeah. Instead of like, I could tell you everything you need to know. I could tell you what blog you need to write next week because someone was asking a question that we could absolutely own. Like it's those little things. You don't need to have all the answers, but someone on your team absolutely does. And you'll never have it if you don't know, but those people care. Your community managers, talk to your community managers, have them have a seat at the table. They have so much intel. They don't need to pull up a dashboard. They can tell you, I haven't heard from Susie in like a week, or so-and-so stopped coming to our emails or our meetings or whatever. Like they know like off the top of their head because they live in there for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
But you don't listen to them. So it's like the signals exist and there's people who actually know that those signals are happening. But if you're not listening to them, it doesn't exist.
Well, that's such the interesting part. I've been in those conversations, right? Where it's like the person is like, oh, I haven't heard about this, or I heard from this person. And there are leaders in the room that are like, well, can we like fact check that? Like, that's your feeling or
Yeah.
that's your opinion. And I'm like, but that opinion matters. Like that
Yeah.
person, that information is more valuable to me than some revenue dashboard that tells me a bunch of numbers that honestly probably mean nothing to begin with. But like
Yeah.
that person's perspective, and that kind of shifts it to it's like if you're trying to build emotional connection with
Yep.
your community, you have to have emotional connection with your colleagues as well.
100%. And that perception is reality. So your revenue numbers could be great, but what you're also seeing is you're not necessarily seeing things in time, or you're seeing things based on like quarterly earnings. But though they're seeing signals for what's going to happen next quarter. And so they can literally spot the smoke before the fire, and you're not listening. And the thing that kills me too, like, and I've worked in tech long enough to know that like everything is quantitative. I am qualitative girl. I love qualitative data because that's like quantitative data tells me what is, qualitative tells me why. I don't want the numbers mean nothing to me if I don't know how to fix it, if I don't know how to make it better. And all of that juicy gold is in the qualitative. So I'm going to immediately go to qualitative and be like, okay, what are we seeing? Are there patterns? Are we seeing patterns of good, patterns of bad, patterns of neutrality? Like, are we seeing drop off? Like, what are we seeing that I can see as a signal so that I can think about like, all right, well, this happened. What can we do next time? Because
Mhm.
what you wind up having is this reactive thing of like, well, retention dropped. We need to like all hands on deck. I'm like, no, I need like the people on deck who should be on deck because they're doing the work that caused the problem. Like,
Yeah.
you see, like I don't want efficiency as much as I want like correct efficiency. I want us to like, instead of all hands, it needs to be, this is the problem. Here's why. This is what needs to happen, and then go. And so that for me is wild because I do think good work runs on vibes. I absolutely do.
Mm.
But we have to translate that into KPIs that leadership actually cares about because they don't want to believe in vibes. But that's 100% the thesis. If I can make you feel this way, you're more likely to do this behavior, and this behavior will lead to this behavior, which is a leading indicator. And then if you do this enough times, it's going to get to this, which is the lagging indicator that your board members care about. But like, it absolutely is the customer journey, but
Yeah.
we don't think about it that way.
No. I mean, that's so much of the premise with customer education. And it is amazing the conversations I have with people. They're like, how did you make HubSpot Academy so successful? And I'm like, I made people feel as if we cared for them,
Yep.
cared for their education, cared for their experience, cared for their business. And honestly, the science behind that wasn't very difficult. That is a
Yeah.
root of education.
Yep.
What do you need to know? How can I help you get there? Let's do this together. There was a reason we started a lot of academy videos with like, hey, like we're in this together. Invite a
Yep.
colleague, invite a friend, like
Yep.
learn together is going to help us grow together, which it is amazing to me how many times that disconnect still happens or the disconnect with the marketing team where you're like, hey, our education can really help on social, et cetera. And they're like, no, 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 it's fine. We've got it. We have other content. I'm like, okay, let me know whenever you feel like that's coming to be helpful to you.
Exactly.
In an AI world now too, I feel like that is just there's a lot of positive like you talked about, and there's also just this, I loved your efficiency, but like the effective efficiency. Like
Yep.
we've talked now so much like, well, AI can just do it faster, more efficiently. And you're like, well,
But is it better?
sure. But is that what is that? Like the smooth is fast, fast is smooth. Like how
Yep.
do we actually create that? So my big question, we're asking
Yeah.
all of our guests something along these
Yeah.
lines, like your AI prediction, like what's going to be the positive, what's going to be the negative, like take us through your hot takes on
Yeah.
AI, whatever that looks like to you.
I think in the short term, it's going to get a lot worse. I think in the long run, it'll course correct because we're going to see, I think the next wave of tech is going to be AI detection because we significantly need AI detection in order to resolve a lot of what we're seeing. AI in its current state is being weaponized for propaganda. It's being weaponized. Like I wrote a piece for campaign because I think it's one agency doing this. there's blue collar companies that are putting not safe for work images on their ads as their main thing to get clicked. And it's created by an AI tool. So it looks like plants instead of like what it actually is. So I think we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing this push for use case instead of like, is it actually working the way that it's supposed to? I think in the long run, what it's going to do is I think it's going to course correct a lot of the problems that we've had as society over the years. I'm already seeing this with analog culture, which I'm a massive, like, if you can't see the vinyls, I'm a massive, like, I have a manual wind watch. I love to read. I love vinyls. I think we're seeing this switch to analog because so many people want to ground themselves on the real. And so I think we're going to continue to see that. I think you're going to see more of a push for in-person, third person, like third party kind of places for people because they need the third place. They need the real. And so I think there's going to be this demand for the real. And then I also think there's going to be this demand for the humanities because I'm a firm believer that AI cannot replace the soft skills, the emotional intelligence. That's what you're actually going to need. So anything that you can do to help build up your critical thinking, to build up your discernment, to build up pattern recognition, to be able to have a very clear, distinctive voice, I think is going to be incredibly important right now. I think you're going to see a lot of people not create their personal brand for personal brand reasons. I think you're going to see a lot of people kind of hone in on who they are as an individual because it's going to feel like a lot of homogeny the more AI, like I'm already seeing this on social media where you can tell AI is writing half the stuff because everybody sounds the same. I'm like, can you crack a joke? Can you be sarcastic a little bit? Like, just tell me you're real. Like, give me a sign. And so that's why I tend to be a bit more sarcastic now than I used to be because it's like, this is me winking at you to be
You're like, I'm a real person.
I'm here on the other side of the screen, I promise. But yeah, so things like that. I think we're going to see that. But I do think we're going to see the destruction of certain parts of society and social norms, like we're already seeing before it gets better. But I think as humans, we will adapt and become unapologetically human because that is the only way to do it. And I don't say that as a Luddite. I'm not a Luddite. I'm very much like an early adopter. I use AI tools. I play with them. I try to do all the things. But I am very pro human experience.
And that's where so much of this is going to be, how do we use it for the good? How do we use it for things that are effective and
Yes.
helpful? And we don't lose our own humanity in it. We don't lose what makes us real. I was just at, a couple of events at the end of, this at end of 2025, where that was like basically the topic of conversation. This is amazing because we're all being human. No one has their AI out. Now, granted, when someone, asked me to take some notes and synthesize them, first thing I did was pop them into Claude, be like, synthesize all this stuff because I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But making that connection is so, so important. All right. If you could leave our listeners with just one piece of advice for building that connection, building those relationships, what would it be? How can they do this for this organization, for their own humanity?
So there's a really great Carl Jung quote that I'm probably going to butcher, but it basically is to the extent of it talks about how you should master everything. You should like have all the knowledge. You should master all the techniques. But when you're touching another human soul, you should be just another human soul. And that for me is like the crux of everything. It's like read every book, read every blog, know all the things, know all the tips and tactics and best practices. But when you're going to be talking to a human, be human.
I love that. And gets at my heart a little bit of like, it's so important. And I miss it, I
Yes.
miss that human connection already of like working from home, whatever it may be, being able to be with humans. Where can our listeners find you, find your human centric content? Where can they connect with you?
I'm still on Twitter. I think I'm going to go down with the ship. I don't know when the ship's going to officially sink, but I am still hanging on. So I'm over there if you want to hear about, and it's very clear I'm multi-passionate over there. I'm talking about like the Netflix Warner Brothers merger, and I'm talking about
Amazing.
college football, and I'm talking about CX and social media and all the things. And then I'm on LinkedIn where you can find me there. And then if you want to catch my book, it's Transforming Customer Brand Relationships. You can get it anywhere where you buy books.
Amazing. It's a great read. I highly recommend it to all of our listeners. Thank you so much for decoding some of these signals with us. We really appreciate it. And it was great chatting with you as well.
Thanks for having me.